Episode 30. If you have ever seen a little cat loving a big dog whom it knows and trusts, you will have a pretty good picture of their behavior. Then Peter, leading Caspian, forced his way through the crowd of animals.
"This is Caspian, sir,"
he said, and Caspian knelt and kissed the lion's paw.
"Welcome, Prince," said Aslan. "Do you feel yourself sufficient to take up the kingship of Narnia?"
I don't think I do, sir, said Caspian. I'm only a kid.
"Good," said Aslan. "If you had felt yourself sufficient, it would have been a proof that you were not. Therefore, under us and under the High King, you shall be King of Narnia, Lord of Caspian-episode, and Emperor of the Lone Islands. You and your heirs while your race lasts. And your coronation. But what have we here?"
For at that moment a curious little procession was approaching. 11 mice, 6 of whom carried between them something on a litter made of branches, but the litter was no bigger than a large atlas. No one has ever seen mice more woebegone than these. They were plastered with mud, some with blood too, and their ears were down, and their whiskers drooped, and their tails dragged in the grass, and their leader piped on his slender pipe a melancholy tune. On the litter lay what seemed little better than a damp heap of fur, all that was left of Reepicheep. He was still breathing, but more dead than alive, gashed with innumerable wounds, one paw crushed, and where his tail had been, a bandaged stump.
"Now, Lucy,"
said Aslan. Lucy had her diamond bottle out in a moment. Though only a drop was needed on each of Reepicheep's wounds, the wounds were so many that there was a long and anxious silence before she had finished, and the master mouse sprang from the litter. His hands went at once to his sword hilt, with the other he twirled his whiskers. He bowed.
"Hail, Aslan!" came his shrill voice. "I have the honor!"
But then he suddenly stopped. The fact was that he still had no tail. Whether that Lucy had forgotten it, or that her cordial, though it could heal wounds, could not make things grow again. Reepicheep became aware of his loss as he made his bow. Perhaps it altered something in his balance. He looked over his right shoulder. Failing to see his tail, he strained his neck further till he had to turn his shoulders, and his whole body followed. But by the time his hindquarters had turned too and were out of sight. Then he strained his neck, looking over his shoulder again with the same result. Only after he had turned completely round 3 times did he realize the dreadful truth.
"I am confounded," said Reepicheep to Aslan. "I am completely out of countenance. I must crave your indulgence for appearing in this unseemly fashion."
"It becomes you very well, small one," said Aslan.
"Oh, the same," replied Reepicheep. "If anything could be done, perhaps Her Majesty—"
And here he bowed to Lucy.
"But what do you want with a tail?" asked Aslan.
"Sir," said the mouse, "I can eat and sleep and die for my king without one, but a tail is the honor and glory of a mouse."
"I have sometimes wondered, friend," said Aslan, "whether you do not think too much about your honor."
"Highest of all high kings," said Reepicheep, "permit me to remind you that a very small size has been bestowed on us mice, and if we did not guard our dignity, some, who weigh worth by inches, would allow themselves very unsuitable pleasantries at our expense. That is why I have been at some
he glared very fiercely up at Wimbleweather, but the giant, who was always a stage behind everyone else, had not yet discovered what was being talked about down at his feet, so missed the point.
"Why have your followers all drawn their swords, may I ask?" said Aslan.
May it please your high majesty,
said the second mouse, whose name was Peepacheek.
we are all waiting to cut off our own tails if our chief must go without his. We will not bear the shame of wearing an honor which is denied to the high mouse.
"Ah!" roared Aslan. "You have conquered me. You have great hearts. Not for the sake of your dignity, Reepicheep, but for the love that is between you and your people. And still more, for the kindness your people showed me long ago, when you ate away the cords that bound me on the stone table. And it was then, though you have long forgotten it, that you began to be talking mice. You shall have your tail again."
Before Aslan had finished speaking, the new tail was in its place. Then, at Aslan's command, Peter bestowed the knighthood of the Order of the Lion on Caspian, and Caspian, as soon as he was knighted, himself bestowed it on Truffle Hunter and Trumpkin and Reepicheep, and made Dr. Cornelius his Lord Chancellor, and confirmed the Bulgy Bear in his hereditary office of Marshal of the Lists, and there was great applause. After this, the Telmarine soldiers, firmly, but without taunts or blows, were taken across the ford and all put under lock and key in the town of Baruna, and given beef and beer. They made a great fuss about wading in the river, for they all hated and feared running water just as much as they hated and feared woods and animals. But in the end, the nuisance was over, and then the nicest parts of the long day began. Lucy, sitting close to Aslan and divinely comfortable, wondered what the trees were doing. At first she thought they were merely dancing. They were certainly going round slowly in 2 circles. Sometimes she thought they were cutting off long strands of their hair, and other times it looked as if they were breaking off bits of their fingers, but if so, they had plenty of fingers to spare, and it did not hurt them. But whatever they were throwing down, when it reached the ground, it became brushwood or dry sticks. Then 3 or 4 of the red dwarfs came forward with their tinder boxes and set light to the pile, which first crackled and then blazed and finally roared as a woodland bonfire on midsummer night ought to do. And everyone sat down in a wide circle round it. Then Baucis and Silenus and the Maenads began to dance, far wilder than the dance of the trees, not merely a dance for fun and beauty, though it was that too, but a magic dance of plenty. And where their hands touched and where their feet fell, the feast came into existence. Sides of roasted meat that filled the grove with delicious smell, and wheaten cakes and oaten cakes, honey and many-colored sugars, and cream as thick as porridge and as smooth as still water, peaches, nectarines, pomegranates, pears, grapes, strawberries, raspberries, pyramids, and cataracts of fruit. Then in great wooden cups and bowls, wreathed with ivy, came the wines, dark, thick ones like syrups of mulberry juice, and clear red ones like red jellies liquefied, and yellow wines, and yellow-green, and greenish-yellow. But for the tree people, different fare was provided.